Hello and welcome everybody to the Buy Round Magic Round Review Show. We're joined by Wade Graham and Brent Read. Both recovered well, I hope.
No,
still
in the process of recovering, Jimmy. It's a long. I was up there from Wednesday. I think when we were up there from Wado.
Thursday. I got up there Thursday, and listen, I'm feeling okay. Surprisingly better than I thought I would. But listen, if you want to be in and around rugby league in the modern game, particularly the off-field stuff, you need to be you need to have your full fitness under your belt. Like you got to get through Vegas, Anzac round, Easter weekend, now Magic round, and I'm feeling like I'm at peak fitness at the moment, so I'm bouncing back well. And like just on Magic round, boys, it is rugby league heaven. You just go up there, 16 NRL clubs, so much stuff in and around the football as well. Like obviously the buy round, I did an event with you, Jimmy, past players up there, and the fans. The fans get around and they celebrate our game. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, did a lot of work, covered all the footy. But Jimmy, I've been hanging out with you a little bit too much, I feel like, recently. So after today, can you just block my number and maybe we'll catch up on Thursday when we do our regular show, just a couple of days off.
An official meeting as opposed to the unofficial ones that we've been having over the weekend. Read, you were in fine form going up early Wednesday, caught with a few old school friends, I believe.
That was on Thursday, Jimmy. I caught up with them on Thursday. Actually, they were uni mates, and blokes who used to play football with. Yeah, went to uni. I got 3 degrees, Jimmy. I got more letters after my name than are in my name. True story.
What's the official title?
I got a BA, a BBizCom, which is a journalism degree, and a law degree, LLB. I got a law degree, yeah. If you ever need help, it's the vibe.
Hopefully not.
It's the vibe. It's Marvo. I can sort it out for you.
Speaking of people having fun, we did our pots on Ladbrokes. So basically, a heap of buy-round punters bought in, and geez, we won them some money.
Really?
Like, it was all day Saturday. We got a same race multi that got up. I had Tigers to be the highest scoring team of the Saturday fixtures. So I was riding the Tigers home. Everybody had a heap of fun. It was an amazing thing from Ladbrokes to do. So pots will be coming back. I don't know when, but it was so exciting. I was so nervous when you're placing those bets for your fans, for your punters.
I can see how excited you were, Jimmy. You're excited now talking about it.
I was buzzing watching that Tigers game. Go, yes, go.
Well, and that's obviously a lot of fun. But the live show we did at Lefties, obviously Macca's took care of that. But that was such a cool bar. We did it in the crowd, was getting into it. Obviously, Shane Webke, he's hard not to be impressed with him. And that was a great event too, wasn't it? We had a lot of fun.
Did you boys walk down Caxton Street together at all?
Yeah.
You did? What was that like for you guys? Did you cop any abuse, Wado?
The first night when I rolled into Caxton for the players' reunion, I got booed on the way in. And I felt like, oh, mate, I'll give it a spell. It was years ago. Like, let it go a little bit.
We don't forget, mate. We don't forget in Queensland. We don't forget.
Mate, we went there and I just bumped into these. It was a couple and they were obviously rugby league fans and they offered me some snakes. And like the girl opened up her handbag and I was like, I'm not taking that. Tainted lollies in the Caxton Street. That's the last thing I wanted on Thursday.
How'd you go on, Jimmy? How'd you go down Caxton Street? You all right?
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
We look after
Most people are pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. You're almost an adopted. No, you're not really. I was going to say you're almost an adopted Queenslander. But you're not.
To be
you're more
fair,
an adopted New South Welshman, aren't you?
To be fair, I know it's Caxton Street, but during Magic Round, I wouldn't say it's exactly pro Queensland. There's plenty of other supporters around there having a good time. And like I know there's been a little bit of talk of possibly shifting Magic Weekend to another venue, but I just don't think it works anywhere else. That is the perfect spot for it. Obviously, Suncorp Stadium, magnificent stadium for football, but they're set up with Caxton Street. There, all the pubs and restaurants and bars. It's just like I said, it's rugby league.
Well, it's more than the 8 games of football, isn't it? Like it really is.
Well, it's everything around it, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And just on that, though, I would take it to Perth for 1 year, just to help that team. I reckon. I know it's locked in 2020.
How would it help that team?
Well, just to give the game publicity and generate some buzz around the game. I mean, there'll be buzz anyway because it's a new team, but I just think it'll help. I know it's locked in Brisbane till at the end of 2027, but I'd almost say to the Queensland government, let us take it to Perth in 2027, the year the new team comes in, and we'll extend you for another 3 years after that. It's just a thought.
No wonder you've got 3 degrees with a thinking brain
Put it
like
good
that.
use, haven't I, Jimmy?
Talking of thinking, what are the match review committee thinking in handing down a potential 3-game suspension to Jacob Preston?
Well, it's potential 4 if he fights it and loses, which sounds like there's every chance they might do. Look, I hadn't seen it till this morning, Jimmy. I didn't see it on the day. And I can understand, I know this is going to cause me drama with you blokes, but I can understand why they gave him a grade 1 charge. The issue is his priors. That's what's killed him.
Yeah,
not
that's
the actual grade 1 charge. It's the priors that's hurt him. So, it's tough for him because he's had a great year and he was sort of on the fringes of maybe Origin selection. I don't think he would have necessarily been there, but he was certainly knocking on the door. And I think it's hurt him on that front, but it's hurt the Dogs. Their discipline, Jimmy, in the last few weeks has been dodgy, to say the least.
But for me, this is an absolute farce. I nearly swore on radio calling this game. I couldn't believe that, first off, Tina was allowed to stay down and get that penalty, which I'll talk about in a moment, because I don't agree with that. Allowing an environment.
Do you think he fainted?
No. I don't think we should set up in an environment that allows players to stay down to get the bunker to come and interject. I don't think that sets a good precedent.
I don't think anyone likes that, Jimmy.
Even for a guy as tough as Tino is, he seemed to make a miraculous recovery. Let's just say that, because he was up and about and looking pretty sharp. But if you provide, you get winners in your team, which Tino is, he's going to play to the environment that you allow him to.
See, I disagree with that, Jimmy, because I reckon that's a personal responsibility. And blokes should want to. I asked Andrew Rabbitohs about this on Thursday, and I said, are you going to encourage players not to stay down? And he said, I don't need to do that, But I agree with you. I think we've created that environment. But I think players need to take it upon themselves not to do that. It's bad for the game.
Yeah, but to be honest, it's easy to say here and now when you're not out there on the field, you have your competitive mind in there, you're not in that moment, the pressure's on your emotional, mate. If you get that incident happens to you in front of it's an 18-all game, 5 minutes to go, and you get pressure on your neck, and the game's on the line, and you're a winner, players will play for
cheating, Wado.
It's not cheating.
It is cheating.
It's gamesmanship.
If blokes stay down, if they're feigning injury.
Okay, so
and
the
I'm
other
not
day,
saying Tino did. But to me, it's a form of cheating.
Okay, so the other day when...
well, so is being offside on purpose is cheating.
Yeah, but blokes get penalised for that.
No, yeah, so you did.
And that's against the rules.
It was a couple of weeks ago where the player, a bit of games, he called the other player. So Curran.
Yeah.
And he got away with it. Obviously, that was not in the spirit of the game, get the penalty. But every time, a player, there was a break on the weekend where a player pretended he was another teammate of the other player, another team, called the ball, and the guy passed him the ball. That's cheating. But you're doing what you can to get the edge. That's what I mean. It's easy to say it now, when you haven't got the emotion, you're not invested, you're not in that mentality. But once that whistle goes, it's a different mindset you have.
You're playing to the rules of engagement. And like I say, the environment that we've set up that has allowed players to know that if they stay down, the bunker's going to look at it and they may act. But look, I really don't like that. Really don't like it. When you've got guys as tough as Tino, necks are very sensitive, but he seemed to be okay. Let's just put it at that. But we saw what happened with Tom Flegler with his shoulder. What seems to be an innocuous thing can be something serious. I'm not going to downplay the severity of the injury. But for me, really, I think we've missed the mark. We've totally forgot what an actual crusher tackle is. So when Melbourne Storm brought it into the competition, it was by design, it was premeditated, and it was intended to actually injure and hurt an individual. That's what it was bought. So the game recognised that.
Jimmy, I don't know if they were trying to injure and hurt.
Yeah, I'll just say,
you don't think?
No, I don't think they went out to deliberately injure and hurt players.
Why else would you drop on somebody's neck?
I think
just to control a tackle. Yes. I'm sorry. There was incidences when this tackle first came in. It was designed to injure.
Oh, I don't like that, Jimmy. I don't think that's right. I don't think Craig Bellamy would have been teaching his players a technique in his mind to hurt the opposition. I think, to control a tackle, yes, I'll give you that. But I don't think Craig thinks that way. I don't think the Storm think that way.
Well, I disagree, because just by the very nature of what the positions you would be put in, it is going to increase the risk of serious neck injury, as opposed to just we all got taught holding down methods, ways to control the ruck, and usually, and wrestlers will speak to this, people in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you control the neck. It's about controlling the head. You control the head, you control them. But when it first came in, it was putting people in ridiculously dangerous positions when you apply force to that. But that's why the crusher tackle was outlawed, and we can argue about it was leading to serious injury. This one on the weekend, Jacob Preston actually, in my opinion, has a choice where he can do that old school crusher tackle and look to maybe really put some force into Tino's neck and potentially injure him, or move his body to allow the head to come through. And in my opinion, watching it, he makes the latter of those two decisions.
I agree. I actually thought there was action from Preston in that tackle to try to avoid the crusher and pressure on the neck. It was just unlucky that he just caught the top of Tino's head as he was coming through. Like, it was only maybe a second of pressure. It was a real sharp thing. And then Tino, how strong he was able to pop his head through. And listen, I think it's probably borderline grade 1. But again, it's these similar offences that have hurt him. There's obviously an issue there in some of his techniques, where this one we might be happy with, but they've obviously found enough in previous cases to charge him with similar offences. And I agree with Read in the sense that it's hurt the doggies because they're going to be missing him if he does get suspended, but it's hurt him personally as well, because even if he wasn't in that Origin team, there's no doubt he would have been in the discussions. I don't doubt he has Origin in his future, but with a suspension like this, it all but rules him out of certainly that first game. And if you don't play that first game, pending the result, is he able to force his way in? Well, we won't know.
Well, I hope that the Bulldogs do go on to fight that charge, because look, the reason it's 3 weeks is because of priors. But I mean,
it'd be interesting, because a lot of the term they use the word careless and duty of care. I think there's things in that tackle where he could say, I was careful.
Yeah.
I was trying to show a duty of care, and you can see the adjustments he makes. Now, whether it's hard to, whether he's got enough of an argument to get off a grade 1, well, it's a bit of a lucky dip when you go to the judiciary and their rulings. But I think if they want to go and argue that he wasn't being careful, I think they can argue that. I think he was trying his best to avoid anything.
Yeah, me too. I just...
There's been some teams that have had luck lately at the judiciary. Yeah, over time, you don't win, right?
That would be a worry for me, but if teams have had luck, because it's probably due for a couple of losses. So.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, the record of the judiciary has been horrible for everyone for the past couple of years, but a couple of guys have had wins lately. So maybe the worm has turned, Jimmy.
Hopefully. Well, we were almost through not commenting on the match officials. Almost, weren't we?
Well, we almost. The last game was the worst one. There were some decisions in that game that were just. Are we going to talk about that? Is that on the run sheet at some point? I mean, there were some decisions in that game that were. But
well, there were game-defining decisions, weren't they?
But Jimmy, just back to the idea of players staying down. This has been a bugbear of mine for a long time, and I know you're saying the game's created that, but players have created that as well
because of the rules.
Because of the rules, but they don't have to do it.
Yeah, but
Wado, I know what you're saying, Wade. I know what you're saying, but to me, that is it's the soft option. It's the easy option, and it's the cheap way to do things. And I would hope players stop doing it. I'm thinking everyone wants to see players stop doing it. It doesn't reflect well on the players when they do that.
I genuinely think we might need to bring in a mandatory 5-minute substitution period for players that stay down for longer than 10 seconds. So if you're going to stay down for 10 seconds...
Well, you have someone with a stopwatch.
Well, I don't mind it, because if you stay down for an injury, players are tough. So if you stay down for an injury, obviously you need to be checked out and looked at by the trainer, and you might need some time on the sideline. So if there was a bit of a injury stop clock or a time that you want to stay down to play for a penalty, well, then you're going to have to go and have a rest so the trainer can give you a proper look at on the sideline. That would be one way to maybe combat it. But again, we've worked so hard to speed up our game. If we're going to have an instance where this player is going to have to stop, the play will stop, take him off the field. What do you do to get him back onto the field? That could create more issues. But there is an argument to be made that if we want to talk about player welfare and whatnot, well, if someone's staying down on the ground, whether they actually are injured or they are playing for a penalty, well, you might.
And Wade, for a serious injury like the neck, I don't know if a trainer can just pass all of a sudden with, just quick and on-field thing. I think if it's a neck, we've got to take this with the utmost caution.
What happened to your idea of the guys coming out with clown shoes onto the Benny Hill music with a stretcher?
With the stretcher. Well, look,
are you still on that one? Is that campaign still on?
I'd be happy to see that.
That'll stop players laying down.
Laying down.
If you stay down for an injury, you have to get the Medicard off. You have to.
Yes.
Then mate, there'll be no players ever staying down for injuries.
But how can a player with potentially a serious neck injury be cleared on field? Because Tino was down for a long time.
Yeah.
He was down for a long time. I think that requires further investigation.
Okay. Maybe I'll dig into it, Jimmy.
Maybe.
Food for thought.
Food for thought, indeed. We're going to get into our Hyundai Magic Round Hero. This is all thanks to Hyundai. Hyundai pre-offies, that is the pre-end of financial year sale, is on now. Jump into offers across a wide range of new and demonstrator Hyundai models. Don't wait. Visit your participating Hyundai dealer today. Who is your hero?
Mine is Canberra fullback Kyo Weeks, who scored a classic try to send the game to Golden Point the other night. It reminded me of the Billy Slater try in Origin. Didn't you think a little bit of that about it? And Wade, you were saying I didn't see the camera angles, but they had a camera angle on basically his face as he made the break.
It was the reverse side. So we saw the back of Pappenhausen and the face of KO Weeks. And it was the only game all weekend that I watched on TV because I was at the ground for everything, but I was on the way to the airport for that game. And it's a great shot. You see the moment where he's in the clear, he locks eyes on Pappenhausen's and he's making the decision in his head. What is he going to do? Is he going to try and take him on with some speed? He opts that he's going to, pretty early, that he's going to kick it and back himself. And just, it's a slow-mo version. You see the decision, you see him shape the ball, make the decision, pull the trigger on it and try and execute the play. And I'll tell you, if you get an opportunity to watch the replay of it, for any fans of the game, go and find that coverage because it is a great angle of a piece of magic play from the Canberra fullback.
Hasn't he become a player, Kyle Weeks? He was at Manly, struggling to get a game. Ricky signed him, moving to fullback because I think he was a 6 coming through, wasn't he? Man, he's dynamite. He's got
speed,
pace and speed.
That one-on-one goes through, and then how do you beat Pappenhausen? It's a genius play.
And again, looking at that camera angle, he made the decision pretty quick because we know he has speed. And a lot of players would opt to take someone on with footwork, particularly if you're as sharp as Weeks. But he made that decision pretty early, pretty quick. It's all happening so fast on the field to the confidence to go, no.
And at that point in the game, where the game's if he gets it wrong, the game's over.
Yeah,
and they lose.
Set, it's done.
Yeah. So brilliant.
And again, not to harp on it, but in that coverage, you actually see they followed all the way through to the try, and you see a last ditch effort from Pappenhausen to punch the ball out. This is all happening in slow motion, but just the lengths that some players will go to compete, never say die. It's never a try until he gets that ball on the ground. You see Pappenhausen swing around, sort of work out where the ball is and try to reach through it and knock it out. He does make contact with the ball too, but KO Weeks is good enough to hold onto it and get a try. It's a brilliant bit of footage. And again, if you're a rugby league fan and you want to see some of the special things that our players get to do and the decision making in that moment, go and watch that. It goes for about 15 seconds. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. Great work, really. Well done.
Oh, thanks, Jimmy.
You've impressed me there.
Put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah, I can see. Well done, mate. It makes a difference to how you usually are. Strange, but it's good. My Hyundai Magic Round hero, look, it's the fans, which I think need to be given credit, because there's not a lot of sports around the world that fans from different clubs, different states can come together and get along. There's obviously a lot of alcohol in the mix as well. No trouble that I've heard from being reported. So congratulations to the fans. Actually, Richie, who's one of the Warriors fans, the Ooh Up the War, they take over the Lord Alfred up there. He was like, it was a Wars only function, but he was just like, actually, no, just bring all the fans in. And I went and met a few of them. I have been critical of the Warriors this year. Didn't think they'd get up too much after Vegas. So we broke bread. We made our peace. But I just think the rugby league fans, absolutely fantastic. Bumped into people that had flown from England again just to come from Magic Round. They loved their NRL so much. So 8 games, all in the one stadium over the 3 days. They were loving it. Lots of people from remote areas as well, where they want that NRL fix instead of coming to Sydney to get a couple of games in a weekend, or Brisbane. It's like, no, let's go for Magic Round. So it's brilliant for that. Congratulations to all the fans. Wado?
Just, you know what I love before we move on to my hero about the fans? Just the variety of jerseys that they wear. Everyone has obviously their club that they go for, but the jersey that they like the most they wear. We see a lot of the old retro jerseys, like say I'm a Cronulla person. There's a lot of the old school Aussie Duck sponsors. That's heritage. But there was a lot of the Super League, the old Pepsi. The almost aqua blue colour ones getting around, and just to see every team has it. Every team has their different jerseys throughout the years, but the fans that they get behind it, and just such a variety of jerseys. And again, it's just rugby league heaven. If you love your footy and you've never been up to Magic Round, put it on your bucket list.
You know what? It's funny. Like I come from a bit of a culture. Was influenced by my brother, who would say, "Never show your colours." Because he'd go watching Liverpool play away, and he'd go, you'd never wear like red, because then people know
you become a target or something.
Yeah, well, you become, if it kicks off, he'd be like, never show your colours.
Yeah,
but it's great that rugby league people are just out in the open, proudly supporting their teams. And like I say, that's part of why the fans make this event, the fact that they are so well behaved and they do come together. Speaking of jerseys, just got to shout out Scott Taylor, good friend of mine, Gould Vikings head coach. They've won 2 in a row now, so he's buzzing. He said, mate, can you get this jersey off the back of the Byron for me? So shout out to you, Scott. Wado, your Hyundai Magic Round hero.
For me, it was a big game for a lot of teams up there, but none more so for Panthers bouncing back in style against the Broncos. They got that defence back that we know. They were able to repel the Broncos for large periods in that, particularly the first half. And the maestro, Nathan Cleary, what a performance. Throughout the game, I was doing the call actually with Read and Josh Reynolds for Triple M. And Joshy Reynolds said something, and I'd never really heard about it put that way, but it was so true when it comes to Nathan Cleary. We always hear in rugby league, you talk about players taking moments or winning the moments throughout a match, and Nathan Cleary, he has those moments himself. But not only does he have those moments, he takes moments away from the opposition, opportunities where it feels like there could be a game-changing situation, a big tackle or a really good set. He has the ability to double down on that. Again, give me an opportunity the very next set and I'll take it away. And there was an instance on the weekend, Katoni Staggs up out of the line early, put a really big tackle on Nathan Cleary, forced an error. Energy went throughout the building. Suncorp, the Broncos, they felt like, that was a big moment in the match. The very next set, Nathan Cleary gets the ball and executes a perfect 40-20 and just sucked that energy right back out of the building. And when Grubby said it just stuck in my head. And Nathan Cleary, he's good enough not just create moments for himself, but to take moments away from you. And he's probably getting in the same ilk as conversations with Cameron Smith in his ability to control the game. Just that level-headedness, no matter where the game's at, he can win it with the penalty when they're in front or when they're behind or when it's in a close battle. And I know they've had not a great run of form to start this season, and we're all looking at them as well as this year. Not just will they make the grand final or lose the grand final, but will they even be able to make the 8? But I'll tell you what, 16 other teams on the weekend saw that performance, and there'd be a couple looking over their shoulders, waiting for Penrith to have a run, and then if they do have a run, they make the finals at the back end of the year. Boy, I wouldn't want to be playing them in a semi-final.
Well, you know, it's funny, Wade. Like, I've heard some people say, "Oh, I think Penrith can make the finals, but they can't win it."
I said that.
You said,
I spoke with him.
Yeah. I heard you.
I said if they're not in the top 4, Jimmy, and I don't think they can make the top 4.
But the thing is, though, if they make the finals, they're going to, just by the pure numbers, they're going to be one of the form teams of the competition. I think if they make the finals, like, they're in it up to their eyeballs. They're not limping into finals. They're coming in, if they make finals, they're going to get hot. And that, maybe yesterday was the catalyst for them going on this bit of a run. I don't think they just make the finals. I don't think
History says you cannot win it from outside the top 4.
Well, history also says no team in the modern era can win 4 in a row.
Well, potentially.
What Penrith have done, they've redefined what it means to be great. It's redefined. Think of the Roosters going back to back, and we put that on such a pedestal. They've just gone, hang on a minute, they've changed history.
I still think they've got to finish top 4, Jimmy.
Well,
Sorry.
Of course it's ideal.
That's what I think.
Of course, the top 4 is an incredible advantage. But again, they will be one of the informed teams if, by definition, the numbers that they need to produce in terms of their wins and losses in the back end or the back 2/3 of the season, that they'll be one of the form teams.
I'm not even sure they're top 8 certainties, Jimmy, the way that, like, I know they turned it around yesterday, but they've still got the Origin period to get through. They're still going to have 4 or 5 players picked in Origin minimum.
Yeah, that's why I think lends weight to Jimmy's argument, because they are not guaranteed. They need to go on an incredible run. They need to survive the Origin period, and then off the back of the Origin period, they need to, 10 from 15 at this stage? They need to win a lot of games coming home to sneak into the 8. Now, if they're to win a lot of games to get there, well, they're going to be full of confidence. And not just that, they'll back themselves against any team. Like, they beat the Broncos, they'll back themselves against Melbourne. They have a great rivalry with them. They know them inside out. The Bulldogs, the Sharks, who else are we talking about? Canberra. And every team, we'd probably say Melbourne have been the front runners. Well, they've shown a few frailties, lost on the weekend. They dropped that St. George game. Bulldogs were flying. Their defence was the best in the competition. All of a sudden, suspensions. They won against the Titans on the weekend, but they got a lot to deal with coming up. That's really about it. Sharkies haven't hit anywhere near the form that we expect them, or the level that we expect them to play at consistently.
Canberra, I think every team in September, if you're playing September,
they're a chance.
You're all playing well.
Yeah.
So then if you finish outside the top 4,
there are some teams that
you're going to win 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
But they're the teams at the bottom of the 8. So they're probably going to play one of them in the opening week of the finals. Then you've got to beat the top 4 sides. And you've got to beat them 3 weeks in succession just about.
Yeah.
You've got to win 4 games in a row. And against the elite teams. And the way they've played this year, I know they were really good yesterday, right? But the way that they just haven't had the consistency this year, and I don't know whether it's there.
Well, Coach Cleary spoke about the ability to put a block of training together, and that result came from that block of training, which is, it might seem like a small thing, but it definitely helps in your ability to work on defensive systems, attacking structures. Obviously, they've had a changing of numerous players like they have every year, and maybe that block of training has really helped them. For me, this was a must-win for Penrith, like to get that confidence-boosting win against the Broncos. But what's it tell you about the Broncos? For me, it sort of leans into that psychological battle, because before the game I was saying I can't imagine the Broncos being fearful of the Panthers, but their record against them stinks in recent years. And I just wonder if Penrith had just got it over them. And then now, with this loss to Penrith, when we forecast ahead to September, and it may not come to fruition, but there'll be some psychological wounds there that the Broncos will have to deal with.
You'd know this better than me, you two, but they seem to me as though they're soft mentally, the Broncos. Because one week we see them flog teams. The next week they put under a bit of pressure and they fall apart. And to me, that's got to be a mental thing. It's not a physical thing, because physically we've seen what they've done to the Roosters this year and some other teams this year, they've demolished them. So that's a mental issue rather than a physical issue.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I'd say because there is plenty of experience, obviously, in that team and plenty of talent. So it's a hard problem for Madge to try and fix because you're right. When they go out there and they have their way with the team, they easily go on. They go on with it because there's so much talent in their team. But it's when they're going in the grind, in the hardest parts of the game, when they're probably not. They probably feel like they should be getting more awards for the footy that they're playing. When they don't get the rewards, you see them try and search for, a quick sugar hit, and normally that's a try. Like we saw, it wasn't even that deep into the first half on the weekend where they had the greatest share of possession, way better field position. They were actually camped on Penrith's goal line for quite a number of sets, and there was 2 sets in a row where they went kick on play 3 or kick on play 4, the early kick. Now that's for me. That's a feeling like, oh my God, what we're doing isn't working. Yeah. So let's search for something new. And that's not the way. Well, that shouldn't be the mindset. It should be, okay, well, we're playing a good team here. Let's try and just find a try and be happy to win 12-10 or happy to win. If we drive over from hooker in the 80th minute to win the game, let's just be happy to stay in the fight for 80 minutes. I feel like they'll probably because they're so good and they can rack up points. Like that 40 minutes in the rain against the Bulldogs. That was the best half of footy I've seen in recent memory. But because they have that ability, all of a sudden if you get into a game where they're not blowing a team off the park, it's all, oh, no, something's wrong here. It's not working. Well, no, it's okay. Like we're just in a game of footy. Let's just bite down on the mouth guard. Yep. And if we need to get to the end and score in the 80th minute, well, so be it.
Do you think there's a level of anxiety within the group around not actually knowing who's going to be playing when everybody's fit? When you think about
Ezra coming back.
And it's, the sequence of events is Ezra is involved in that incident, and then was the signing of Ben Hunt a reaction to that, or was that part of Maguire's plans anyway? I'd be really intrigued to know. Had Mam not found himself in that situation, would the Broncos have gone out and bought Ben Hunt?
I'm sure though that when Madge bought Ben Hunt, he laid out the scenario when Ezra Mam came back. And I imagine that involves Ben Hunt moving to hooker because I think they need Ezra at 6 because he's such a good player, Ezra Mam. But surely when you talk about uncertainty about where players are playing, Jimmy, they would know. They'd have clarity around. Madge is smart enough to surely have let Ben Hunt know when Ezra Mam comes back, he'll play 6, you'll go to hooker or play 14 or whatever he does.
Yeah, I get that really, but there are times when you forecast for things for the future and this is what it's all going to look like. I'm sure Madge would have loved to have seen his team get off to an absolute flyer. His halves play so well that Ezra Mam's looking like, I'm going to have to wait for an injury or origin to get myself back into this team. But also the ramifications of signing Ben Hunt. It's not just about this season. It's now the fact that Adam Reynolds feels as though he wants to go again and his future is being spoken about.
And Selwyn Cobbo's the other guy.
He's the other one because in a losing team, out of all those Broncos, Selwyn Cobbo was fantastic. Yeah. Like he carried the ball physically. I love the simplicity of his game when he's at fullback. He brings the ball back. He's got that class where he can actually take advantage of space. But if you present a straight line, well, he'll get his bumpers up and he'll take you on with physicality as well. And he was well over 200, up over 200 metres. And then again, you talk about where the team's at positionally wise now and the changes that might need to happen. But there's some guys, Adam Reynolds, obviously Selwyn Cobbo, he's got an eye on next year as well. He needs to know what his future is going to look like. So he's dealing with that on the side, but he's playing good footy. And then again, Reece Walsh comes back in. I'd imagine he goes straight to fullback. Selwyn's on the wing. It's a lot to be sort of dealing with, not just in terms of footy, but the distractions that come outside of that, particularly in and around when you're trying to sort out your future.
The biggest distraction up there is the media, because when you don't win and you play like they did the other day, the media up there is relentless on you.
Does Ezra Mam come straight back into
I think he's got to come straight back in, as long as he's fit.
Is that as a reaction, but from this one performance? Or because after you look at the Bulldogs, man, you go, well, you're not changing that team.
No,
it's just inconsistency.
Don't you just bring him in anyway? I mean, he is, he's a good player. Really good player who did something really silly and sat out a lot of time for it, but 9 weeks or whatever it was. But surely he's in your first choice side. Now, I don't know whether he's fit, what his fitness is like, or what he's like mentally.
His fitness should be
well,
through
I think
the
you just bring him straight back in, Jimmy.
And we've seen players miss more time with injury that don't need to come back through reserve grade. I think it's a case of just get Ezra Mam in the team.
Well, surely your best 13 is Ezra Mam at 6. Is it or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And look, I've been in that position before where I was available in 2013, available round 8, and there was no way I was coming back in the reserve grades. I was absolutely flying. I had an extended preseason. Like Ezra Mam, I'm assuming, will be highly motivated and use this time to better himself. So
it was interesting the reaction he got yesterday when he was on the big screen. Yeah. The boos.
Again, it's not a pro-Broncos crowd.
Yeah. But it was largely like that crowd. The majority for that game, I'd imagine, were Broncos fans.
Yeah, but there's also he does have a long pass to still redeem himself. Like I know he made a mistake, but it was a big mistake. He served time out. Obviously, not being able to play the game, but there's still some penance to make up with obviously the rugby league community because the reaction was vocal and it was instant. And it's disappointing to see that because he's such a good player, but we can't take away. And I know he's probably spent a lot of time, trying to better himself and trying to make up for the mistake that he made. But it was a big mistake, so I can understand the fans' disappointment in that. And that leads into the point of him being highly motivated to come back, start repaying his team and his club, and start repaying the NRL in general because. He wants to be playing and he wants to do the right thing by the game, and unfortunately he hasn't been able to show that on the field, and he's been doing his time on the sideline. But even that he's due to come back, he still has a road to go to fully redeem himself. Yeah,
it is going to be really interesting to watch how the Broncos play with Hunter if Ben Hunt does go to 9, and then obviously. We talk about the ramifications of other players in the squad, and we're talking about Ben Hunt moving, but that knocks Billy Walters out of the team, and then maybe Corey Pace out of the team. Like these all have consequences, and obviously for next season, if players are getting the tap and being told, "Hey, we're going to have to move you on because we need to fit Adam Reynolds in," and it's just going to be interesting about how connected this group are going to be, knowing that some of the decisions are going to have consequences on plenty of other players' future, and this happens at every football club. But you just worry. Going back to the point earlier about this luxury of bringing in Ben Hunt at a time when he was obviously available, got him on an actual relatively cheaper deal, and you think this is how it will play out for 25. Renault then retires, and Ben takes the 7 position. So. The goalposts have moved, but Brisbane have got some big decisions to make. And just on the Cobbo thing, Wade, I think people forget that the Broncos have actually signed a player to play in the outside backs. It was one of Maguire's first moves to get Grant Anderson from the Storm to play somewhere in the outside backs. Yeah. So, look, they've got to be looking to make space for people. That was a big move for Maguire to get that player in. I don't know if he would. Really, it was necessary to go so hard for someone so early. With a player like, with all due respect, Anderson's standing in that Storm team. He wouldn't be a November 1 guy usually speaking, where teams start to speak to him. With all due respect, big early move from Maguire. Like maybe the writing was on the wall from then.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because they may have to make that decision between Cobbo and Reynolds, and for me. Even though Anderson's coming, you've got to keep Cobbo. I mean, they're talking about a bloke who's got 10 years left in his career. Adam Reynolds has got 1 year left in his career. And he's been a great player and he makes them tick. But you bought Ben Hunt because you thought Adam Reynolds was retiring. Yeah. And Ben Hunt ain't going anywhere because he's got another year on his deal. So as tough as it may be, if I'm the Gold Coast Titans, I'm making a call to Adam Reynolds saying, hey, mate, if they can't fit you in, let's have a chat. Because he wants to stay in Brisbane, as I understand it. There's a job there at the Broncos. Now, I don't know what that would mean for his job at the Broncos, but he can stay in Brisbane, play at the Titans. And for me, the Titans are screaming out for a halfback. Because I think Kieran might be back this week.
That makes sense, really. It really does.
Thanks, Jimmy.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But
put a lot of thought into that one, Jim.
People keep saying like Stags is done.
Yeah, he's done.
Why isn't it being announced? Like I'm even surprised, but the Broncos can afford to keep them all. I don't know if this you've got to start to think about how can you keep Mam, Reynolds, Hunt, Carrigan, Walsh,
They got a
Cobbo,
Payne Haas.
Stags, Haas,
Another
Willison.
one guy. Yeah. Well, they're the Broncos. They always keep them all. Jimmy.
How can you keep them all?
Well, you can't. I mean, that's why they're struggling to fit in Reynolds and Cobbo, because if Cobbo goes to the market, I mean, he's a $700,000-800,000 player, right?
Well, possibly
pretty easily,
more,
possibly more if he's playing fullback somewhere.
With the two new teams coming in, yeah,
and that's going to drive everyone's price up. Like if Payne Haas happens to go November 1 and Perth are coming in 27, they're mad if they don't throw millions at Payne Haas. So Brisbane they're juggling a lot of balls. You're right. I mean, it does have the potential to be a distraction because in that town they are that big that everything happens with that club is huge news. So yeah, the Dolphins when they have issues like this it just doesn't have the same magnitude about it. Or the Titans or the Cowboys. When it's the Broncos, man, it's front page news, it's back page news, it's everywhere. So if they've got to let one of those guys go, it's going to be massive. It'll be news up there for a week. And that has the potential to be like, we know how much Madge hates that stuff, right? I mean, Madge would prefer, I'd imagine they were never in the paper.
Well, I don't see the very fact that he went out and bought Grant Anderson, for me, it suggests that there's not a space for Cobbo. And if Stags is done, like everyone's saying, like that back line would be Walsh, Arthurs, Anderson, Stags,
Mariner.
We've not even spoke about Shibasaki.
Yep.
He was fantastic too, actually. His defense was good. Like there was a couple of individual guys who played well for the Broncos, but just as a team, they just missed the mark. But yeah, and you talk about the distractions off the field, really, how big everything is in that town. That's just a part of your environment. You need to know you've got to deal with that, and as a team, you need to have strategies to combat. Where you focus, what you focus on, and what you let in, and how much the noise affects you. I know it's a big noise up there, like you said, but their focus has got to be their football. And at the moment, the inconsistency of how good they can be, and then when they're just not at that level, it's stark in how much of a difference it is.
I just wonder if their biggest distraction is their retention and recruitment.
Well, you know when it becomes a bigger distraction, Jimmy, when they don't win.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah,
that's
obviously
the problem.
You go back.
It becomes
10 days,
right?
and we're all saying the Broncos are back, and this is brilliant.
Winning sells everything.
Yeah.
Let's just win every game,
and then
boys. It'll be sweet.
Losing obviously highlights these issues around what their best team looks like.
Yeah.
How do they fit?
Minor issues become much bigger issues when you are losing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that's and again they've got Origin to deal.
It's still not going to go away.
No,
until.
No, but you can at least keep a lid on it if you win. If you lose, it becomes...
You can use that, look, the
what's
players
happening with
are happy.
Cobbo? What's happening with Reynolds? When are you going to re-sign Payne Haas? Is he going to go November 1? All that stuff becomes a much bigger story if you're losing football games, particularly when you lose it, like they lost it on Sunday. Then it becomes a huge issue. So that's the danger, I reckon, for Madge. Because as I said, Madge hates that stuff, right? Drives him nuts. So if they're losing and all that stuff's getting talked about, it tests his.
Well, you control the
temptation.
controllables, don't you?
Yes.
You can't control that.
No.
You can help and you can try and spin a narrative. The way it gets fixed is if you actually get deals done. Yeah. Or you come out and say, look, we can't afford to offer Adam Reynolds a deal. We can't afford to offer Selwyn Cobbo a deal. We've made some decisions, and that is the unfortunate consequence of the salary cap. And I think that's really what it's going to come down to. And you know what? I think most people would respect that.
Yeah.
Like as tough as it is, and as much as we'd say, oh, you've got to find a way to keep Reynolds. Well, you can't.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got to find a way to keep Cobbo. He's the best of everybody there. Well, you can't. And those decisions will be criticised, and we will say, well, why did you sign Ben Hunt? Why did you go and sign Anderson? You think Staggs is better than Cobbo? Like, people are well inclined to have that opinion. But if it is what it is, then you have to get on the front foot and get out there and say it. Because otherwise it will linger, and I feel we'll not see the consistent best of the Broncos while these issues are lingering. Like, some teams can move on from them, but maybe it's an easy answer for us to say this is what's causing it. But
so question marks around the Broncos.
Absolutely.
Big ones.
It was bigger. And obviously with Origin, and it's a results-driven industry, so the critique is going to come for them. And you know what? When they play well, like they did in that second half against the Roosters in round one, like they did in that first half against the Bulldogs last week, they're going to get the credit they deserve, and rightly so. But when they don't perform, it's going to come under the microscope because they are so big. Madge knows what it's like to deal with the South Sydney and a Hollywood A-lister owner, and to be in the press and manage the Sydney press and people like the Burgess boys and GI. Like, he knows what this is like. That's arguably one of the reasons the Broncos bought him there, because he can deal with being a big club head coach. Anyway.
Brisbane's a different kettle of fish, Jimmy. I know Souths are big, but Broncos, they are massive.
Don't disagree with you, really.
Sorry, before we move on, are you sweet with the Broncos after your little shot at them over the weekend?
Yeah, no, I'm good as gold, yeah. I got a text message.
What shot did he have?
Oh, you didn't hear it?
No.
Oh, yeah, I'm not.
I just wrote in my column, I said it's a disgrace they haven't won a comp for nearly 20 years, which it is, with their resources and their support and the money they've got at their disposal and how big they are. That's disgraceful. That's what I said. I got a text message from someone there with a photo of the article.
I like it when Queenslanders turn on their own, Jimmy.
Saying what?
Just saying with that part of the article, saying a disgrace, question mark. And I wrote back and said, yeah. Oh, no, I bumped into him actually at the stadium. I said, yeah, it's a disgrace. But I said, well, it's not your fault. You haven't been there for 20 years, so don't worry.
Fair play. I mean, you're allowed to have your opinion, and it's an educated one, as you've described to us at the start of the show, 3 degrees.
That's right, yes.
Let's get into our instant classic, which is the Raiders and the Storm, their recap. This is proudly brought to you by our official sports apparel partner of the Buy Around podcast, The Classic Sportswear. Whatever your team, from international, NRL, Super Rugby, or the grassroots, sign up to Gear Like a Pro at classicsports.com.au. Today, we have got some exciting news coming with Classic Tony. We'll be announcing that relatively soon in the next couple of weeks, but stay tuned for that. A lot of people asking about how we can get hold of Buy Around jerseys, memorabilia, but figure that one out. Classic will be involved with that. The last game of Magic Round 2v3.
It was a beauty.
It was great. It was controversial. I admire the comments from Melbourne after it in taking responsibility about their discipline, not looking to blame. Reedy, what did you make of that?
I gave them every opportunity to blame the refs. Yeah, I agree with you.
Loaded questions.
There were a couple of loaded questions in there, Jimmy. Look, I think Craig realised, what did they get out to? Was it 16-0?
14-0.
14-0. When they're out to a big, and they've done this a couple of times this year, they've gone out to big leads and they've thrown it away. So I think I can understand Craig's frustration with that. And I'm like you, I admire him for taking responsibility for that. But there's no doubt some of those decisions at the end of that game, for me, the Stefano alleged stomp, terrible decision. And Stefano hasn't been charged over that. Now, I spoke to Stefano after the game, and he actually said, I feel bad. It was my fault. I shouldn't, I'd been warned earlier in the game by the referee about being involved in things. And he said the minute he stopped the game, I knew I was going to get sent, I was going to get penalised. So good on him. But I thought there was nothing in that. I didn't think there was anything in the Trent Liero forearm. I thought he got pulled down by Tommy Starling. The tackle at the end I didn't have a great view of. But those two decisions, they cost Melbourne the game. And no one got charged. Yeah. Liero didn't get charged for any of those. The forearm, the high tackle, did not get charged. Stefano did not get charged by the Metro Review Committee.
You know what's interesting? I know what I'd rather be on the receiving end of. And when comparing the Jacob Preston, Tino Fasoa Malaawe incident.
Which one?
I'd take the Jacob Preston light touch on the neck any day of the week.
Over the Stefano brush with the foot.
Well, I'd say the elbow. That's what Jimmy's talking about. Listen, I think, look at Canberra. You've got to give them credit. They're turning into a bit of the comeback kings, aren't they? Like the last-minute try against Cronulla, then chased down a big lead the Dolphins had in front of them at home last week. And then again, Melbourne down 14. Might be a bit stressful for their fans and obviously sticky, but they have tremendous belief. And they're just like they're just so unorthodox the way they play. They have a lot of power, a lot of tremendous power. They're big. They've got some pace out wide, strength out wide in Timoko. He's a fantastic player. And they're just like a team full of footy players. Weeks went there as a half, now he's a fullback. Tarpany moves across the line, offload. Hudson Young, he's always at you if you're giving him. How good's
he playing?
Yeah, if you're giving him space. And they just did enough against Melbourne. But listen, I think the Melbourne, you can say they were harsh decisions, Reedy, but just at times in the game, at the moments of the game, you just need to be clean and you can't have your emotion get the better of you. And certainly Liero, he was put into an uncomfortable position and he used an opportunity. Fine, there's a bit of a grey area where you have the ball. You can use, your bumpers to protect yourself and sometimes put some pressure on the opposition. But for me, there was no doubt there was an extra effort. He went out of his way to make contact. And then off the back of that play, Pappenhausen kicks a field goal. They review it. It gets taken away. And then Itoya Kamanu won in Golden Point. You were 15, 20 metres out from the opposition's post. Just be clean. Just be clean with your discipline, particularly if you've been warned.
Yeah.
Like, what is more important, getting into a little altercation with someone because they're frustrating you or getting the result and, sitting in the sheds half an hour later just going, we got that done. Didn't mean anything to me, that little incident. It was just my emotion. And it's disappointing because it's hard when you lose control out there. I've been there myself for sure. But I know what's more important. It's the victory, and that's two crucial moments that they did to themselves that they could have avoided. And they put pressure on the referee to make a decision, and the decision went against them.
To be honest, I'm not a fan of obviously every field goal gets reviewed, and we saw the consequence of us missing an offside in the Sharks v the Tigers, but I don't know about a ruck interference penalty when we review a field goal attempt. Blockers, offsides.
But say Jimmy, there's a knock-on in the play of the ball. There's a knock-on in the play of the ball, and then it gets played, they kick the field goal, the ref misses it.
I don't think a ref misses a knock-on.
I'm just saying, but they'll be still in the ruck. They'll be still in the ruck.
He's got some faith in the refs. They miss a knock-on. Happens every week.
It's not as if you're going to go, it's when the foot goes, when the ball goes past the foot, we're not going to get in front of that.
I know.
So I hear your argument, but I feel like it's got to be from the play of the ball or from the ruck that's actually formed until the field goal. Okay, we'll say again, there's a crusher tackle in that tackle, and they look at it and they go, well, he misses the field goal, but we're going to review it for the penalty, and they get the penalty. They are going to do that.
Yeah.
In those golden point moments,
they're
looking for everything. So I wish they'd looked for it the week before for the Sharkies, but everyone I think would have been on notice because of the fact they missed one. Yeah. If that opportunity comes up in Golden Point, or even at the end of the game when the game's on the line, if someone's going to have a short shot for a field goal, you just have to be squeaky clean, and 2 times the Storm weren't.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was fair enough by the Storm to take responsibility.
Yeah, good.
I think they own that. They'll realise it's a game they should have won, especially being 14 points up. I think that the bigger talking point is just the Raiders, how they've tapped into this identity, that their middle forwards so strong, under the radar there. They love the underdogs tag, and what this victory against the Storm will do in terms of building belief. They'll have probably Hudson Young play Origin. Anybody else? Really? I can't.
No.
There's probably
Top
not.
Of my head, no.
No one's jumping out there that said so. They'll be okay.
Maybe Horsburgh. Maybe Horsburgh might make it for the Queensland team. Maybe.
So
to talk about the belief, Jimmy. Look, there's no doubt. They look at those 3 victories, right? The last minute one against the Sharks, the Melbourne one on the weekend, and then the Dolphins one. Just the spirit and confidence that grows in your group, because there's parts of those games where they'll look at it and go, boys, we missed the mark here. Like, to let them get that far in front, or to put ourselves in position, we missed the mark. But have a look when we get it right. Have a look how good we can be. We can chase these teams down. And that's only when we're putting 40 minutes of footy together or 50 minutes performance together. Imagine we go out there and start well and get out to a lead. So like the confidence they are growing down there. And again, they're unorthodox in the way they play. So they're unorthodox when you've got to prepare for them. And it's hard to – it's almost like one of those teams. You've got to deal with it as it comes and trust that as a team, when we come up against them, we can work out what they're throwing at us and we can make those adjustments to our defensive system or, our parts of the game that we need to sort of combat where they're hurting us. But they're a tough team to play against. And Matty Nicholson, Savage – the other winger who scored that fantastic try, Tamale, he's strong. Ethan Strange, like he's just like a little bulldog out there. He just runs the ball. He's strong. He's a competitor, and Ricky's got him going. And again, another team that's really making this seem like this is the most open season we've had in recent memory.
I think that the comp is there for the taking. I think Melbourne on paper, but they've shown their vulnerabilities. They're a different team with Harry Grant in that side. Definitely. He makes such a difference. I think he's their best, most influential player. Yep. Just for the Raiders, I think they enjoy the underdogs tag.
Can't stay there, Jimmy, if you keep winning.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? When they start to get the love, Ricky Stewart can't turn around and say, look, everybody's right.
No one thinks
everybody's loving you now.
Us against them. It's not us against them.
Don't read the press, lads.
Well, they're at that point, aren't they? They're at that point now, surely.
They showed against the Titans.
Well, I think they'll be favourites this week against the Dogs. It's in Canberra.
That's going to be a
Dogs are a few out. They've got to be favourites this week. Against the team that's top of the table.
I think you're right.
Yeah, thank you.
I think you're right. I think they will be favourites. And again, probably Ricky Stewart's like, what listening to opinions like this, going like, oh look, they're all against you. They're all predicting you won't be able to handle the favourites tag.
You must be fatigued from Magic Round because you've been agreeing with Reedy way too much.
What is wrong with me? Yeah. I like you, Reedy. I'm not like these other blokes that slag you off. The favourites tag, they had it against the Titans. And they missed the start there. But you've got to give them so much credit, what they've tapped into. Yeah. Like I personally thought losing Rapana and Whitehead was going to be really difficult to navigate with the experience. And I know how close they were down there as a group and an important part of everything that they've built over the past couple of years. But this Canberra field's got a bit of the 15, 16s about them.
They've recruited well, haven't they? We mentioned Tamale. They've recruited K.O. Weeks, Matty Nicholson, Smithies. Like they've been smart in their recruitment in the last few years.
And the big one for it is their youth.
Yeah, they've gone young.
They've gone young, which is a risk in terms of trying to get them all through and develop them so you can have an eye on now and being successful now, but you're building some longevity, or you hope to have some longevity with these guys being around and sticking together for a while. So they've had a strategy and it's starting to pay off. We're starting to see the fruits of it. And, honestly, you have to see them competing for a grand final. The window's open. The window's open in the next few years, particularly before, Papali's almost at the end. So you're going to need another enforcer. Tarpany's been around for a long time. They were a part of that. Was it 17 they went to the grand final? They were a part of that. So they're probably the last stalwarts of that era. And they'd like to sort of hope to get one done before they ride off into the sunset.
Hasn't Joey Tarpany become a player? And a leader?
Just a leader as well. Man. Just a leader. How valuable he is to that team.
So good.
I was over in Vegas and just the way they talk about him, like the way his teammates talk about him to start, like his coach talks about him, he's held with the utmost respect down there. And it's a bit of indication of who you are as a person, and as a footy player, and a leader on the field when your teammates speak about you in that way.
Yeah, they have his back 100%. They vote him as the best front rower in the game, no question. They wouldn't swap him for the world. Speaking of teams that are making an ascendancy for potentially a premiership, the West Tigers, they're all playing happy families now. What's been a strange year. One of the most bizarre turning points in a game you're ever likely to see. And from a player that's probably one of the Dragons' best as well. you can't even say anything, can you?
Oh.
The Jaden Sewer.
You ever drop one over the line like that?
Like that?
Or just in general?
I'd never drop one like that.
Why don't you?
I was never in that
like
position
that.
many times, but
Not like that. I threw an intercept once with about 3 minutes on the clock, and we were up. So I didn't even really need to take a risky play, and I threw an intercept. James Roberts caught it, so he could have
Not catching him, yeah.
He ran under the post, and I learned a valuable lesson. And I remember I was devastated. It was probably the first time I'd cost my team to win. 100%. Like, there was no need for the play. I took the risk. We were in front. Flato pulled me aside. I said, mate, the game's hard enough to win once. You don't need to try and win it twice. So I learned my lesson there. Sewers was a different situation. He had the line wide open. It sort of hit his knee on the way through.
What do you reckon he was trying to do? You think he was trying to...
I think he was just trying to adjust his arm, but his knee came through because he's sort of stumbling through, and I don't think there was plenty of time left in the game, so it didn't actually cost his team the game, but it was a massive, massive
12-point
swing.
10 just before half time.
12-point swing.
The difference you're going in.
Yeah, mood. But and again, Jerome Buller there on the spot, he gets into the clear runs. I know you always say, oh, that's a 12-point turnaround, that's a 12-point turnaround. That was a 12-point turnaround.
Yeah.
But what do you do?
I feel for him.
The Tigers, though, they're just getting a few victories now, and I think that they're going okay. They've still got more gears in them.
They're going good, Jimmy.
Yeah,
they're winning close ones.
Yeah.
They're going good. I mean, and obviously things are settled down with Galvin and Luai. I mean, interesting, Luai's comments at the weekend, we don't need to be best mates, we're grown men, suggests that, it's not happy families, but they've worked out a way to get through it. And look, I thought they'd be around the top 8, but I reckon they might get there now. I think they're playing that well. They're going to lose a couple in Origin, probably Terrell May.
Was that Luai possibly?
Maybe Luai.
It'll be interesting to see how they deal with that period, and then whether they have a couple of losses, lose a couple of close ones, how that affects their mood and their confidence, because they're going good now. Like you said, they've strung a few together, seem to be, put the drama behind them. But when you start to lose again, like we just mentioned about the Broncos earlier, winning takes the critiques and the pressure off you. But if you stack up a couple of losses and that long stretch of not playing finals footy starts to become a possibility again, and you're in that dogfight for the 8 at the end of the year. But there's no doubt you feel good watching them because of how far they have come and the victories that they're getting. They've had more wins this season, I think, already than last year total. So that's you can't get any more possible positive than that. It's round 9. So it's good to see. And the biggest one, obviously, the Luai effect, but how well Terrell May's going.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was talk about how well he was going at the start of the year, but he's just doing it week after week after week, consistently over 200 metres.
Do you think he plays Origin?
Well, he's in the window.
I wondered about him in Origin because one of the great things about Terrell May is his motor and the fact he can play really long minutes. If he doesn't start, does he give you that?
That's what I was thinking. I think he's arguably the best forward this season. But his strength is the fact that he plays long minutes, gets plenty of touches. He doesn't need to be the Terrell May at the Tigers in Origin. New South Wales, in Origin. He needs to be a different player.
Yeah.
And probably when you think of Haas, Lenu, Mitch Barnett, there's some strong middle forwards there. So if he plays State of Origin, he might play 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
But what he does is he gives you versatility too, because you can bring him off the bench. He could be first drop, really, first change as a front rower, push him out to half time. Obviously, he starts the second half, and then he can go to the 40 if you need him to. Or you go.
But I'm thinking, do you need him to do? But also, what might be Laurie Daly's selection dilemma? He might need to drop Jake Jabojevic to bring in Terrell May.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Loz plays it, because obviously a changing coach. Madge was there last year. He had his ideas. Now, I'd be surprised if there's a whole lot of change. Madge did a lot of great groundwork to start that put some things in place. that'll no doubt carry on with that team, some things. But
Jimmy, imagine New South Wales dropping the captain who led them to a series win. Can you imagine that?
This
would never happen in Queensland, Jimmy. This would never happen in Queensland.
Remember when Kevin Walters dropped Billy Slater?
Wasn't the captain.
Yeah, but he's Billy Slater.
He was coming back from injury, all sorts of stuff.
Don't start throwing stuff over the fence.
Mate, imagine that, dropping your captain who led you to a series win.
Well, it's a part of the conversation of how you fit everyone in, like how you fit everyone in. Because if you pick Jakey as captain and as lock, well, Isaiah Yo's on the bench.
Well, do you put Jake? Do you say to Jake,
Yeah.
you said we need you to do the same job as you did last year. We need you to start for 20 minutes.
So you'd have Jakey, Payne Haas, Isaiah Yo. Jakey would come off his first drop.
And then you have
Lenny,
Barnett.
Because Terrell May, maybe.
But in all likelihood, there'll be 2 Origin forwards that only get 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah. Well, there's always that way. Unless you pick a utility and you just hold him on the bench to see. Then there's one forward who gets that hit.
So you're going to get likely Connor Watson,
and he doesn't get on until probably the 55th, 60th minute, right? Depending on where the game's at, how Robson's going, if you need a change, like cover for injuries. And then you have your two front rowers who have, they're the first and second change for your starting front rowers. And then do you have someone like an Ola Kawatu who's big and powerful and covers the back row, or you can use him as a middle. So these are this is such a difficult thing when you're picking your bench about what style are we going to play, what are we looking for, who can cover what position, and planning, obviously best case scenario, but planning your cover for worst case scenario.
I honestly think if May plays, the 4 guys, Jake. So just looking at it'll be Haas and then the number 9 up for debate, probably Robson. And then it'll be Jake T or Terrell May. Edges will be
Crichton and
Martin.
Lock will be
Isaiah Yo. And then you get your bench of Connor Watson, your 14. Lenu, Barnett, and then Ola Kawatu, Young. So I don't think you can fit JT and Terrell May, although they're very different players. That could be the crunch call about.
I reckon there's another crunch call, Jimmy, that people are overlooking, right? I reckon they're outside backs. I think Lomax will come back next week. I think you've got to pick Lomax.
Yeah.
Brian Tyre.
He's back this week, I think.
Do you pick Tyre?
Well, if he's in a race with probably Carraz, I think.
Well, then your centres, your options are Latrell, Tommy, and Steve Crichton's got to be there. So you're going to leave out Latrell or Tommy. Drama in the New South Wales game too.
Drama. Competition for spots.
Who do you leave out, Latrell or Tommy? Or both, and pick Bradman Best?
I would have Best in there.
You leave them both out?
Maybe.
Woof.
Just off the top of my head.
No, you should be $4 favourites if you're leaving out Tommy and Latrell. Queensland are massive underdogs.
Let's see him get back and start playing. There's still 2 weeks, so we don't need to pick a team now.
We do. That's what we do. We pick the team for about a month now.
Origin forever and a day is, again, it brings in hard decisions. And I joked before about dropping Billy Slater. That was because Darius Boyd was fullback and he was at the Broncos and they were flying. And that was a tough decision. Queens left the great Billy Slater out for a game. Ultimately, we regretted it and they brought him back the very next game. But it's going to be the same in the halves. You got Cleary, Moses and Luai. Do you go with Moses and Luai, the guys who won the series last year, and leave Nathan Cleary out? I don't think so. So Nathan comes in. Do you back his combination with Luai? Or do you pick a Nathan-Moses combination, have Moses go to the left and leave Luai out, who won the series last year? So there's going to be tough decisions for Loz all over the park.
I love how the players are dialing up their performances.
It's good.
You can see some of them are almost saying, I want to play style. I'll show you what I'm made of.
I have no doubt Dylan Edwards watched the Roosters' performance, and whether he feels like he's in competition with Teddy or not.
He'll be the fullback, won't he?
He will be the fullback. But Teddy's been excellent.
Playing
outstanding.
So good.
And I think if Dylan's fit, he's first pick because he earned that jersey and he did the job in the jersey. But he's got an eye on it. He knows what these other competitors out there in the one jersey doing in the competition. And, Teddy delivered on Saturday Friday night. And then Edwards comes out and plays his best game probably of the year against the Broncos. So It's good. It's good. Everyone's dialing up for Origin.
Could be some good players left out of that New South Wales team, Jerry.
And in Queensland as well.
Not as many, mate. We don't have as many. So, we're about less from up there.
So Dearden, does he find a spot?
You can't have Dearden, Ponga, and Reece Walsh all in the same team.
Well, Reece is injured, so he'll miss Origin 1. No, he won't be back for Origin 1. So Ponga will play.
Munster the fullback, DC and Dearden in the halves.
No, Munster will be the 6 and DC will be the half. And Dearden will be either not in the team or the 14 maybe.
So no
Ben Hunt. He'll be dropped after all he's done for Queensland.
I think
mass changes.
Dearden's going better than Ben Hunt.
Queensland in chaos.
No, we lost last year. So loyalty goes out the window when you lose. When you win, you pick and stick. When you lose, you change. It's Origin. That's why I find it horrifying and mortifying to think that New South Wales would axe their Origin winning captain.
Hey, don't worry about the New South Wales. You just worry about the drama in Queensland.
Shocking, Jimmy.
Right? Billy.
Shocking.
Billy's going to have to leave out Dearden.
Laurie won't. Laurie wouldn't do that to Jakey. Laurie won't do that.
It probably speaks more to what the team needs and what both teams need. You think of the makeup of the bench of Queensland. I know Billy Slater's not frightened of having, I guess, an untraditional bench of maybe 2 forwards, a utility spine, and an outside.
There's a bit of mail going around about Kurt Mann actually in the Queensland team at the moment. Billy's a big fan of Kurt Mann. So
as a 14,
I assume as a 14,
and very versatile. Yeah, can cover middle, edge, outside backs.
I reckon the key for Queensland is the bloke we missed last year was Tino, because he's got a bit of rubbish in him, right? And Queensland, I shouldn't say we, I'm an impartial journalist, but Queensland got bashed last year, physically stood over, I reckon. And Tino helps on that front. Tino and Tommy Gilbert help on that front because they've got a bit of shit in them, right?
Will Max Bath make it back?
No, I think he's an outside chance. But Tino's the key. Keeping Tino fit he's so important. He's such a good player. Except when he hurts his neck.
Yeah, hopefully he's recovered from that little incident. It's fascinating. The conversation is just going to increase with everything Origin coming up.
Can you actually, leading on, can you talk to me about this Warriors breakfast that you had? And you had to smooth some peace over? Well, I didn't know you were beefing with the Warriors fans.
Oh, the Warriors fans often don't enjoy the bar round. We've got plenty of listeners over across the pond and plenty of Warriors fans that tune in.
What have you done to them?
They think I've got a personal vendetta against the Warriors. I'm like,
do you?
No, absolutely not. They were just dreadful in Las Vegas, and I thought, I thought there was going to be a long year, and I made the correct call when I didn't have them in my top 8 last year. Everybody had them in their 8 last year. I didn't. And they're like, oh, Jimmy's got a vendetta against us. Well, I was proven right. And they often say that we don't review their games for long enough.
We all put a line through them after Vegas. They were horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And they had a great victory against the Cowboys. I thought it was a dangerous style of game in that shootout style. But Metcalf, in terms of what he's done since Las Vegas, his form has been outstanding. Yeah. It's almost to the point they need to look at upgrade and extend for Metcalf, because with 2 new teams coming into the competition, they know he's going to be one of those guys that gets...
Harris Tavita's been good too, actually.
Yeah.
For a bloke who took a year off and travelled the world or whatever he did. What did he do? I can't know. I think he went backpacking, didn't he?
Higgin, and Hooker, obviously Charles at the back. They're growing in confidence, and it's good to see Lukey Metcalf playing well. He went over there for an opportunity he had. He was at the Sharks with us, and he's a local junior. He's a great kid. Obviously extremely talented, but he had at that stage Nico and Matty Moylan in front of him, and then obviously the emergence of Braden Trindle. So you'd love to keep them all at times, but sometimes you need to go elsewhere for an opportunity. That's what he's done, and it was a shaky start with no Sean Johnson, but he's found his rhythm now. He looks confident when he's out there. He's kicking. And obviously his strength is his running game. He's super quick, always has been. He spent a bit of time as a fullback, as a junior as well, because of that natural pace. But he's just getting that balance right between getting the team around the park and then obviously still being dangerous in that running game, which isn't always easy to do, because sometimes when you can get lost in terms of almost pulling out of the game a bit because you have to communicate so much with everyone else. But he's got that balance and he's playing well. And there was another Cronulla boy actually who debuted for the weekend on the Warriors, Sam Healy, Mitch Healy's son.
I spoke to him after the game, Mitch Healy.
He almost came up with a magic moment too, a little double kick and out over the dead ball line.
He looks like a good player.
Great player, great young player. And he's actually, he could be an 80-minute hooker for sure down the track. But I think right now, because of his size, he's actually quite big and he's tough. And he's a runner of the football. So he could be a little bit of a foil there for Wade Egan in terms of Wade's craftiness and ability to control the ruck, and just to bring Sammy on in a role where he could probably play as a tight, maybe a middle forward who distributes, but can also get in there and speed up the ruck and take those darting runs. But I'm with the Warriors. I've got no issues with the Warriors. I think you're going good, everyone out there. So don't need to light up my DMs there.
Hopefully we can get a trip over there for finals. If they make the top 4, they'll guarantee a home game. So watch out, Auckland. It was. I spoke to a couple of commentators that were over there in 23 and just said the atmosphere in that city was just, everybody was about the Wars. Who are up the Wars?
It was incredible. It was incredible.
You went.
I didn't go. Woodsy went, I think.
Yeah.
I stayed at home, but I remember this is how fanatical we got at that stage. Remember they changed the phone service to WARS. So, you have your 4G or your Optus somewhere or Vodafone, or are you sponsored by anyone who we're still looking for one?
No, still looking for it.
They changed it to WARS. That's how much how fanatical the fans got behind it. And whenever, rugby league is going well at the Warriors, it's going well in New Zealand. And I love that. I love the fact that it's obviously rich in rugby union history. But there's an opportunity and a pathway there for the league. And, I know we always talk expansion and there's a few things seeming to be locked away, but, there's always an option for a second team in New Zealand.
I think as well, without Fisher Harris, without Tuivasa-Sheck, without Watalan, Dylan, without those 3 players,
the greatest praise for them, Jimmy, is I forgot those blokes were out. That's how well they're going. Completely thought they were injured.
We're also covering the loss of the experience of not just Sean Johnson, but Tohu Harris. He was their captain. So there was always going to be, I know they got Fisher Harris in to sort of bridge that gap, but he has been playing. So there's always an adjustment period where when you lose guys in your team who's, so Tohu Harris and SJ in particular, the biggest communicators, they do the most talking, and they probably they have the biggest presence, right? Yeah. When they talk, people stop and listen, and it connects everyone, gets them on the same page. It's not easy to replace that in a team because new guys have to not just step up, but they've got to earn that respect as well to go, okay, hang on a minute, he's saying something because A, he's done it for us in the past, and we've been a part of that. We've seen him do it, so we know that his word, he's actually going to do it as well. And B, it makes sense. He's got the best interests of us as a team at heart. It might not be what I agree with, but I know what he's saying is going to get us the result in the end. So I'm going to jump on and do what he says. So that takes a while to replace, and you have to give credit to Andrew Webster and the team for looking this good while having those players injured, but also not having that experience to call on as well.
You know what though, Jimmy? I was talking about the Broncos and their 19-year drought or whatever it is. You think about the Warriors and the nursery they've got over there, they should be a powerhouse every year as well. The amount of kids they've got access to, I think their Harold Matthews team, which is that 17s? I think that just won that. They just won the Harold Matthews at the weekend. You got Halasima, Tuapiki. They're everywhere. Those kids are everywhere over there. They should be a perennial powerhouse, the Warriors.
Well, I think we'll start to see the joy of those successful years, start to come out, in the next few years. Because, of course, they'll split a lot. They had to try and recruit a lot of Australian players because they were competing so hard with rugby union, and they had to build that success. And we know they had great periods, in the 2000s. Stacey Jones took them to a grand final. But whenever they have that bubble of success, it gets the interest back onto the league. And, when you have a decision as a 15-year-old, am I going to pursue rugby league or am I going to pursue rugby union? It helps when the Warriors are going well and you go, well, there's my pathway right there. That's how I envision. That's where I want my future to be. And, we're starting to see the likes of those guys come through.
Speaking of teams struggling when missing players, South Sydney, obviously no Latrell, no Whiten, no
Humphreys, no
Walker, and no Cam Murray.
And Mamazulis.
Yeah.
That looked like a bad one too.
Yeah.
For Souths, how much spotlight goes onto the recruitment of Lewis Dodd?
Oh, there's going to be a lot on it because obviously you can see that right now they don't have a lot of faith in him. Like he only played at the weekend because Jack Whiten got ruled out. There was no intention to play him because I think the view was he hadn't shown enough. I think he had 2 20-minute cameos, and he hadn't shown enough in those cameos to deserve a spot in first grade. And their preference would have been for him to go back to New South Wales Cup and show them earn your spot in first grade, because I don't think he's shown them that he deserves a spot in first grade yet. It's just through injuries. And he battled on the weekend like they all did, and their forward pack
to be fair,
their forward pack got smashed.
In his defence, Jackie does an injury late, so he's not in the team. He hasn't prepped with the team all week. He's probably been in and around the team, filling in, running opposed, or helping out with the reserve grade team. But then he doesn't get into that team until Jack goes down. So it's not as if.
Yeah, you got to see. Like he got the chance, you got to take it.
I get that.
What I don't understand, Wade, is I watched that game, right? And you know Lewis Dodd better than me, right? His kicking game is immense, right?
Yeah.
James Sullivan's doing all the kicking. His kicking game's horrific. I don't understand.
Yeah,
how does that happen?
I didn't understand that either.
I looked at the stats afterwards. Sullivan did twice. He kicked the ball twice as much as Lewis Dodd.
Yeah, that didn't make sense.
I don't that's nonsensical because Sullivan's kicking game in that game was diabolical.
Yeah, so for me, I think the writing's on the wall for Lewis Dodd and South. Like so we had Walker and Humphreys not available, which seems to be the starting choice.
Latrell went there.
Latrell went there. You had Whiten go there. Then you had Sullivan go there. So he's basically like fifth or sixth choice halfback. So for me, I think that they really need to look at his management need to look at who needs a 7. I don't want to see him leave the NRL. For me, all roads lead to Wollongong. And with the Dragons, that they need halfbacks. Obviously, they made a change with Ilias and brought the young lad in, but that was through there's basically no one else. Because talk about dropping Lockie Ilias, it was like, well, who else is there?
Can I throw a left fielder at you? Could he play 6, Lewis Dodd?
I think he's a 7.
Okay. I'm just thinking Christian Wolf knows him well, right? Does, the Dolphins. And what's interested in when South signed him, I think Wolfie was looking at him to potentially sign him for the Dolphins. So
to play alongside.
Well, I assume to play alongside Katoa.
How old is Dodd?
He's early 20s, 23.
He's got time.
He's got time. I think the Dolphins probably would be interested, but also the Dragons. He's.
Cowboys are another club that need a half. Oh, Dearden's playing. Dearden played 7. Clifford's playing 7 at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be moving the jig. So I think if you could do if the Dragons could do a play.
Newcastle?
Titans.
Well, yeah.
Oh, actually Dylan Brown.
Yeah, Dylan. Titans.
Yeah. I think if you could do a bit of business there, if you look at Souths, they don't need a 5th choice halfback on 600-700 grand a year. They need some middles.
Oh, massively.
So if you go to maybe a bit of experience in the middle. If you look at the Dragons, their strategy is young players in the middle. They've got some players not even making the 17. Blake Laurie, Ray Fatalamarina. They're going with youth to give them experience in the future. If you go, well, we'll take one of these older forwards on a swap deal.
I've got a spanner in the works for you there, though, Jimmy. They've signed Daniel Atkinson for next year to play 6, haven't they? The Dragons.
They have the Dragons, yeah.
To play 6.
I'm pretty sure
Kyle's going to go to
7. Yeah, I'd imagine. I think the alternative plan to that was if Lachlan Ilias was playing really well, then Oh, well, Cookie's there, and they bought Cookie as well. So I think there was thought that Kyle could play potentially hooker as well.
Also, Little's been fantastic.
He has been, yeah.
So they're a little, even on the weekend, I know they went down, but he was fighting hard. He scored a try. He's been the ultimate impact player for them. But listen, where he ends up, there's obviously a little bit of water to go under the bridge, but I think the same as you, Jimmy. I think the writing's on the wall. For him probably there, and it's unfortunate because of circumstances with, obviously with Demetrio moving on. Who did the signing? Was it Solly or someone else in the background? And then Bennett comes. So it was really not the probably situation he thought he was going to walk in on, and it's going to be, I feel like, a tough year. But yeah, if I was his management, because he's on good money too, right? Yeah. I'd be trying to shuffle the decks a little bit there and see if I could go out and find a different home for my player and maybe work with a club to get South some reinforcements that they need.
And look, we're coming over from England. You can't come and guarantee yourself a spot. But as a halfback, we know there's only going to be one number 7. But when he signed, it did appear as though there was an avenue there for that he would be the 7, Cody Walker would be the 6, and that would be the halves pairing. And then almost not immediately after they signed Dodd, but pretty soon it was that, or in the off season they acquired Humphreys and Sullivan. Yeah, which I imagine you'd be looking at and going, "This is a bit of a strange move. What's going on there?" Sullivan was not going to be a backup.
Well, I think they signed Humphreys. Is not a lot of money. I think they signed him as potentially a 14 when they signed him, but obviously he trained the house down.
And it looks like so.
Man, how fit is he?
Him shirt off.
And then he played well in the pre-season. He just got his nose in front of Lewis Dodd. So that's just unfortunate. I mean, Jaden Sullivan, I think they just bought him to cover the positions, right? And they got him cheap because the Tigers. He's still contracted with the Tigers and they're paying the majority of his wages. So he's a little unlucky on that front, Lewis Dodd, that Jamie Humphreys just came in and killed it.
Yeah, well, that's the nature of our game and sport in general. Sometimes you are in a 2-horse race for one position and you just got to put yourself in a position to get an opportunity. And then we all admit that Humphreys was outstanding. He took it with both hands. A couple of match-winning field goals, I think, in back-to-back weeks. And South, for a guy that was probably unheralded, his absence has hurt them. Where their ability just to control the game and put themselves in positions to get results because they've gone backwards since he's been injured, obviously compounded with the fact that Walker got injured, Whiten was injured, Latrell's out through suspension, who they'll get back this week. It's a shame about Mamazoulis as well. It looked like a pretty serious elbow injury. He was in some discomfort coming from the field. So, again, they'll be shuffling the decks to put a new 9 in there.
Absolutely. All right, that's all we've got time for. Really, been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming straight off the plane. And Wade, great to see you again.
Can you block my number?
Yeah, I'll see you Thursday for official duties at 6 o'clock. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you soon.